Hi there, my name is Richard Millward. I work at Trinity College Dublin and I facilitate the SECS community of practice.
And I'm Elizabeth Oldham, also working at Trinity College Dublin and a long-standing member of SESI, a term we'll explain just as we start the lecture.
So this is our paper, Preparing for Computing in Irish Schools by Developing a Community of Practice. And this work is taking place in the context of the SESI organisation, which stands for Computers in Education Society of Ireland. And within that, SESI-CS, which is SESI Computer Science, is the project that is the subject of this presentation. So our talk is going to be in 5 parts. We're going to talk about the background, the project itself, evaluating the first year of the work, talk about our plans for sustainability into the second year, and discussions and conclusions.
First of all, we need to set the background with regard to the current policies in Irish education with respect to computing, the syllabuses that are in operation at present, and the players on the field, particularly those in SESI, the Computers in Education Society of Ireland. If I start with the Digital Strategy for Schools, this is a document from our Department of Education and Skills. The subtitle tells you what its focus is: enhancing teaching, learning and assessment. It's based on a constructivist pedagogy, focusing particularly on embedding the use of digital technology in teaching and learning in schools. It's not focused on curricular subjects. It does contain brief references to ICT skills and to programming, but rather more with regard that they do need to be considered. They're not the important things in that document. Against that educational backdrop, we can move on to the syllabuses that have come into operation. And I have to say, some of the recent movements have been more for economic than for educational reasons, though there are those of us who strongly endorse them for educational reasons. It's actually the reintroduction of computing. 30 years ago, there was an element in the curriculum. Currently, what we have is an optional module, a short course, on coding for 12 to 15-year-olds. We have a newly introduced computer science course for the top 2 years in school. There are some 40 schools taking part in the first round. And at primary level, there is ongoing work, including a couple of cohorts of teachers, on computational thinking. Each of these is supported by professional development provided by the Department of Education and Skills. However, it's just for the teachers involved in that development, and it is 3 separate professional development exercises. That is, there is no sharing across the levels of the curriculum, and no sharing with teachers who aren't yet involved. This means that we do have a role for SESI to come in and bring things together. As regards teaching and learning with digital technology and computing, SESI has a foot very firmly in both camps. Going back to 1973, it's a teacher professional network interested in enhancing teaching and learning. We like to think that we are the go-to body for digital technology and computing in education, certainly at all school levels, maybe even more than that. And therefore, we think it was very appropriate that SESI was asked to propose the project SESI-CS, which received sponsorship from Google last year and now has come into this year as well. Just an eye on the development of SESI over the years can come from looking at our logos back to the first one, which appears to be a punch card, down to more recently acknowledging the existence of cyberspace and the internet.
So now, what is this project, SESI-CS? Well, first of all, it has aims to sustain a community of practice. This community of practice should be advocating for improvements in computer science education, and also nurturing the bottom-up collaboration that we believe is possible between all the players. But also, we hope that through this work, we are preparing teachers for introducing computing in schools. The project has been developed in phases, starting in September 2017. We have moved from national meetings to a beginning on regional meetings within 7 of the education centres. There are 30 altogether in Ireland. And we held at the end of last year the national workshop, bringing some of the people from all the regions together. The features of this work are that we are trying hard to build on trust, respect, and signalling collaboration amongst teachers. We care about the continuity and progression for learners through from primary to post-primary and third level. And we are trying to link with the existing use of computers in schools in ICT, information and communications technology, as well as computing across the curriculum in subject specialisms such as geography and mathematics. We have been organising regional meetings using Salmon's 5-stage model, which is written to help people facilitate online community, because partly the work we're doing is online. But it has this nice appropriateness of looking at socialization and sharing of basic information, moving through to knowledge construction, and then finally development of practice. We started our meetings with unplugged computational thinking activities without even turning on a computer, nevertheless introducing key concepts through exercises that get everybody up on the floor and talking. So at the same time, we achieve some socialization. We get into depth on the technology by using projects to make things with technology. And we've used the microbit scratch programming and even spreadsheet data. We think that this allows the participants to practice their craft in relation to the TPACK model, technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, as shown here. We also are concerned to ask the question, are you a computer scientist? To the teachers. Are they the kind of people that are modelling best practice to their learners, not simply transferring information? And then in the summer, we had a workshop to bring the participants from all the regions together to share their work and ideas. Within that workshop, we had 8 sessions, a good attendance, and an awful lot of engagement and enjoyment. Because we focused on the idea that they're going to create something of use to them as takeaways.
The research we've done for this paper is about evaluating the first year of the project. As regards the research questions, we're thinking much more about the teachers' development of confidence and their identity as regards perhaps being computer scientists, rather than of their competence, and we certainly didn't test their competence in any formal way. The questions for this paper are built around the main one: is there a basis for a sustainable community of practice of the kind that we are hoping to develop? Sub-questions stemming from this are: what are the participants' reactions to the model? What did they learn? How did they develop? What was their identity as they come into the second year? And where do they see computing or computational thinking fitting into the school curriculum? Everything from shouldn't be there at all to should be compulsory for everybody.
So this leads us to a theoretical framework, simply put as 3 overlapping sets of ideas connecting with community of practice, so well expressed by Etienne Wenger, identity, and competence and confidence.
As regards collecting data, there was an initial form through which people signed up to consider being part of the project, to show an interest. Among the things that it asked was, where are you working now, so to speak? So I would have replied teaching at university level, and teachers would tend to specify the level of school that they're teaching in at present. We saw this as a partial proxy for their current identities, or their identities rather, at the start of the project. Then, over the summer, after the final workshop, we circulated a questionnaire to all those who'd expressed interest initially. And the points of interest in this paper are the sections on their reactions to the meetings and workshop, their learning, what they said about their own gains, their own reported confidence levels, their competence and their identity, and their view of where computing fits into school curricula. You see some sample items listed on the screen. Each of the items was scored from strongly disagree through to strongly agree. In addition, we collected our own reflections as we took part in the project and counted those as part of the data.
So when we chart the responses to the initial expressions of interest, we discover that the predominant group is secondary teachers, teachers at post-primary level are the biggest group, alongside the primary teachers. And this is to be expected because the hot news when we began was the introduction of a new examination for school pupils leaving school, which was going to be a great trigger for teacher interest in what we were doing.
And we can say again, this may be a measure of the initial identities as they showed their interest in the project. As regards the findings from the final questionnaire, looking first at the 3 sub-questions, we must emphasize there was a low response rate. It's only around 10%. However, those who responded were overwhelmingly positive, and they were looking for more of the sort of activities that we'd done during the year. As regards confidence and so forth, some reported gains in both confidence and competence. As regards their identity, some did endorse computer scientist as their identity. More endorsed computational thinker. They could endorse both. Finally, as regards computing in school for the sub-questions, there was, perhaps surprisingly on the basis of prior knowledge, agreement with the fact that there should be a subject in the primary curriculum, maybe called coding or computational thinking. That hasn't been the line that has been taken generally. There was agreement, less surprisingly perhaps, that computational thinking should be integrated into existing subjects, especially at post-primary level. The results perhaps didn't help us to work out what should be the relation to teaching and learning with digital technologies.
So our overarching question was about the sustainable community of practice, because even if we could not show specific outcomes in the first year, it was still in our interest to make the community of practice continue and find out what could be developed through this kind of professional learning. Our survey responses gave us some nice suggestions for doing that, particularly this clarity about local involvement and getting the community to drive the meetings rather than have an individual descend from Dublin to lead the workshop. So, and this has had an effect we'll talk about later. Observations that we made were that the use of digital technology in this in the meetings that we formed was an important aspect, and that we could use computing problems which demanded collaboration. And this is a very interesting new thing that I found, that with the right kind of activity, we could combine understanding of computing with social cohesion. So our plans for sustainability are based on these findings for year 2. And as you can see from this map of Ireland, which shows the education centres that we were using, we had 7 of those in the first year. We're going to now go for 14. We're going to double our effort, partly because we have been given more funding. And nevertheless, we'll still not be quite on half of all education centres in Ireland. So there is work to do beyond this coming year. So we've successfully sought and achieved funding from Google. We will continue and to work closely with the official professional development bodies to ensure that we complement their work. But we're going to make our future plans to continue with the first 7 centres and help them to become self-sufficient by essentially looking for commitment from local organisers. We, at the same time, will establish meetings at 7 further centres and try to accelerate a path to local organisation within the year. We can triple the number of national workshops this year to 3, and we can make a bigger effort to sustain an online dialogue, a national online dialogue, through the mailing list for all teachers involved. And we do think that the model that we've created may have potential for application to professional learning in other areas. So how are we going to encourage our centres to be self-sufficient? And what we've done is we've discovered a really interesting model that Harvard School of Education have used, called the Scratch Ed Meetup. And we think we can benefit from their efforts and with some adaptation, use their model. So we're going to start by showing people how they can organize their local group. We can add to that an offer of some financial support. We can seek the commitment from the teachers to actually do the work, and of course to codify this information in a handbook so that they can consult with that to find out what to do when. And finally, we can add an opportunity for national guidance through meetings and online support.
Coming to our conclusions and opening up discussion, just a reminder again that the SECS project was essentially complementing the official professional development provided by the Professional Development Service for Teachers, the PDST, that you see the acronym on the screen.
So we feel that our conclusions are, based on the findings, that the bottom-up approach is welcomed by the teachers who responded, and they would like more of this. We do see some evidence of their learning. We do see indications that further local autonomy would be beneficial. And most of all, we see some opportunity of innovation in the actual professional learning activities, which can combine technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge with social cohesion.
However, it's not so much what we see for Ireland as what you see for your own area. Say South America, say Brazil, say, because Brazil is large, a region in Brazil. So we'd like to throw that open for discussion. Thank you.
And thank you very much.